Hey everyone, my name is Sean Arnold and welcome to another episode of Playing to Win. This is a sub-series where I look at the top tier strategies for Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist. Today we are going to be focusing on the Yosenju archetype. Yosenjus are a fan favorite deck of mine. I've used it many times on the channel, doing multiple videos. And the reason why I love them so much is that they continue to evolve as time goes on. I'll talk a bit more about how they do that later on, but if we look at their tournament history here, they consistently can place quite high in tournaments. They don't often dominate metas. They've never really been a tier 1 deck, but they can compete with the meta and they can do pretty well in finding different ways to counter it. If you want to play Yosenju yourself, the easiest way to get them, in my opinion, is to go for Duelist challenges, and you need to go for the Art V Duelist challenge against Silvio Saratari. Get his Teachers of Yosenju's deck, fight against him multiple times and get as many Yosenju cards as you want. And then you also want to go to Yu-Gi-Oh! Zeal and fight against Nistro in order to get some cards from his Fire Fist Brotherhood deck. There is one card you definitely want to run in this build, and you're going to see it in just a moment. However, if you don't want to go through those methods, you can go to the Pendulum deck here, and you can also get cards from the card shop. Maybe buy them multiple times, and hopefully you'll get lucky enough to get some Yosenju cards, like Yosenju's secret move here, as you can see here. So, what makes Yosenju so good? What makes Yosenju so good is that they have a very small engine that is very consistent and can work very well. Yosenjus do have more cards than what you're seeing on the screen here, and I can show them to you, but often we only really need to run those cards which you've seen in my main deck here. So these are the Yosenju cards, and they are actually quite decent, and you can actually use them if you want to, but for more competitive strategies, people tend to just focus on this engine here. And that is 3 copies of Kama 1, 3 copies of Kama 2, 3 copies of Kama 3, 2 copies of Sujic, and 3 copies of Fire Formation Tenki. Kama 1 has Kama 1, Kama 2, and Kama 3 all have a special effect, and that's what really makes Yosenju's appealing. The effect is, if this card is normal summoned, you can immediately, after this effect resolves, normal summon one Yosenju monster from your hand except the same monster. Because of this, it makes Yosenjus really easy and effective at swarming the field without actually using a special summon mechanic. This can be very important because when combined with certain other cards, you can really abuse this in multiple ways. And all the Yosenjus also have the second effect where during the end phase of the turn that this card was normal summoned, they return to your hand. So that's kind of the downside for being able to normal summon so many monsters in one turn. That includes Sujic at the end, who also have that negative effect. As well as that though, all the Yosenjus have another effect to kind of distinguish them from each other. Kama 1 has the ability to target one card your opponent controls that's face up and return it to the hand, which is very good for getting rid of extra deck monsters and other cards similar to that. Kama 2 has the ability to attack your opponent directly, but when he does so, he only deals half battle damage, and that combines really well with Kama 3, whose effect is whenever a different Yosenju monster deals battle damage to your opponent, you get to add another Yosenju card from your deck to your hand. Yosenju card meaning the spells and traps as well as the monsters. Yosenju Sujic is a little bit different here. He doesn't give you extra normal summons in the turn, and he does return to your hand during the end phase, but he gives you a different effect. He works either on the field or in your hand. On the field, he can give you a Yosenju monster 1000 attack, making someone like Kama 2 up to 2800, which is quite nice and helpful sometimes. Or, during the damage step of a battle with a Yosenju monster, you can discard this card from your hand to the graveyard in order to give that Yosenju monster 1000 attack. It can be used offensively and defensively, and it can be pretty good to do overall. Finally, you have 3 copies of Fire Formation Tenki, which is your searcher for the deck. It adds 1 Beast Warrior type monster from your deck to your hand, and also gives them 100 attack. So this is the Yosenju engine, and maybe you might not see why it's so good so far, but because the Yosenju engine is so small, what makes it so appealing is that it can be built with other engines that are in the game. You can do stuff like, for example, to complement Yosenju's weakness. One of their weaknesses is that they have a very poor first turn play. Because they are monsters which return to your hand, and on the first turn you can't attack your opponent, there's really nothing here to appealing other than maybe going for a XYZ extra special summon during your first turn. So something you might want to do with Yosenjus is run a lot of trap cards, and there are tons of stun trap cards which you can use with Yosenjus. I won't go through all of them here, but a couple of examples are things like Macrocosmos and Dimensional Fissure and Necro Valley, which lock off the graveyard, which you don't really care about because your Yosenjus keep going back to your hand. There's also things such as Vanity's Emptiness, which stops both players from special summoning, but then you can use your cards to normal summon over and over again. Similarly speaking, cards like Pot of Duality, which search cards from your deck, are also very good with Yosenjus because they stop you from special summoning, but then you can normal summon during your turn, so you kind of don't really lose out there. Running a lot of trap cards though, spell trap cards, isn't going to really increase the speed of your deck too much. So what often people like to do is increase the speed of the deck with the Demise Engine. The Demise Engine are the following cards here that are new to the recent update, and the first card here we have is Card of Demise. Card of Demise makes it so that you can draw until you have 3 cards in your hand, and also after this turn of the card resolves, your opponent takes no damage. It's a good little draw engine card because you get up to 3 cards into your hand, and it can really increase the speed of your deck. And ideally what you would do with this is you'll put a bunch of cards on the field, so you'll normal summon a lot of as many Yosenjus as possible, put as many spells and trap cards on the field, then play Card of Demise and fill up your hand with 3 new cards. The downside of Card of Demise though are twofold. 1, during the end phase of the turn, you have to discard your entire hand to the graveyard, and 2, you cannot special summon during this turn. However, that doesn't bother Yosenjus because Yosenjus don't special summon, they normal summon. In terms of discarding your hand as well, what's also good about Card of Demise is that when you play Card of Demise, it will resolve its discard your entire hand effect, but before, not after, but before all the Yosenjus come back to your hand from the field. So that will trigger, and then once it's triggered, all the Yosenjus will come back to your hand, so you still will have a full hand regardless. Things that complement Card of Demise are Pot of Duality, which I just spoke about, but also Into the Void, which you can activate when you have 3 or more cards in your hand to draw 1 card, and during the end phase you have to discard your entire hand. Similarly speaking, that doesn't really hurt Yosenjus too much because of the reasons which I just said. Now, other engines that really work well with Yosenjus are things like Speedroids. Speedroids complement Yosenjus really well because Speedroids take benefits from combining with wind monsters. Monsters like Tactimble can special summon themselves from your hand to the field when you have a wind monster on the field. Speedroid Terratop is also really good because you can search out your Speedroid monsters and get a free special summon. And also cards like Menko are very good as hand traps because when your opponent attacks, you can special summon them to the field in order to turn all your opponent's monsters to defense position. The good thing about Speedroids is they really cover one of Yosenju's main weakness, and that is their poor first turn play. Your Speedroids are fantastic on the first turn. If you can get a Terratop to your hand, you can special summon one of these, go and grab Tactimble, then combine them for an XE summon of some sort, and that gives you a really solid first turn play. Or if you've already got the Tactimble, search out Speedroid Menko so you have a defensive card in your hand, and that way you have a level 4 monster which can be special summoned to the field, stop your opponent from attacking, and then combine it with your Yosenjus later on for a unique XE monster on your next turn. Speaking of XE monsters, there are great XE monsters that work well with Yosenjus, as well as the usual array of monsters. You have things like Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Tiger King, which can search out your Tenki and negate all monster effects on the field. Diamond Direwolf loves Yosenjus because he can tribute them for his card effect to destroy cards on the field. Gagaga Cowboy and Yosenjus always go hand in hand. Because you can summon so many Yosenjus at a turn, if you summon up to 4 Yosenjus and then attack your opponent directly, you're going to pretty much almost OTK your opponent. With the 2 Cowboys, you will do enough damage to kind of kill your opponent off and win the game in one turn. Harpy's Pet Phantasmal Dragon is also really good for Yosenjus. It takes 3 level 4 wind monsters, but it cannot be targeted by effects or attacks, and it can attack your opponent directly for 2,000 attack. That will do about 6,000 damage to your opponent over 3 turns, and is very powerful. A lot of people can't really deal with this card. Similarly, Lightning Chidori is amazing as well because when it is summoned, you get to target 1 set card your opponent controls and return it to their deck. Then you can attach a card and target a face-up card your opponent controls and return it to their deck. Beyond this also, artifacts work really well with Yosenjus because with engines like Card of Demise, you can use artifacts with Card of Demise, set these on the field instead of other trap cards, and that way you can then special summon them during your opponent's turn to shut down and disrupt their plays. But my favorite engine to work with Yosenjus are Kaijus. Yosenju Kaijus are amazing. The Kaiju engine, if you're not familiar with it, is a bunch of monsters which can be tributed to your opponent's side of the field and get effectively be used as monster removal. Ideally, you will give your opponent a weak monster, tribute something that you don't want to deal with, and send it to the graveyard. And because it's a tribute for a special summon, it often won't trigger off effects such as when this card is destroyed by battle or card effect. It's a really good thing to do, and by giving them a weak monster which is easy to deal with is also really cool. It also has other little fun combos. For example, when you have one Kaiju on your opponent's side of the field, you can special summon one to your own field, and so ideally you will special summon a bigger Kaiju. Similarly, you have cards like Interrupted Kaiju Slumber, which is a better version of Dark Hole. You can destroy all cards on the field, then special summon 2 Kaijus, one weak one to your opponent's field and one strong one to your field. And when this card is in the graveyard, you can banish it to add a Kaiju to your hand, giving you a form of searchable monster removal. Also, what works well with your Kaijus and Yosenjus is Yosenju Kama 1. When Yosenju Kama 1 is on the field and you've got another Yosenju, you can give your opponent a Kaiju monster, get rid of one of their monsters, then use Kama 1's effect to bounce it back to your hand, and then you can use it later on again however you see a need fit. It's a really great engine to combine together. Now, what makes Yosenju so appealing is when you combine multiple engines into one deck. And so the build which we're going to go and try out today is Speedy Yokai. Speedy Yokai combines Speedroids and Kaijus with Yosenjus in the main deck, and in the side deck we have an artifact engine and a couple of other trap stun cards in the great deck, depending on what situation we are playing against our opponent. In the main deck here, you can see we've got the Speedroid engine with a couple of Menkos and one Tactenborg. We've got the Kaiju engine, which we're doing a level 8 variant of the Kaiju engine with 2 Interrupted Kaiju Slumber and 2 trading for draw power. And then you've got some cards like Twin Twister here for generic back row removal. And as you can see, most of this deck is based on hand traps. The Kaijus effectively work as hand trap monster removal, and also you've got cards like Maxi, Ghost Ogre and Menko to stop your opponent doing a variety of different things. What's really great about this engine though is the ability to modify your deck during the second or third game of the duel. Often what will happen with people, what I expect to happen, is when they see myself playing Kaijus and Speedroids and not realizing I'm not playing a lot of trap cards, they're going to not really focus on bringing in cards like Twin Twister or similar kind of forms of removal. And at that point, that kind of leaves me at fair game to kind of bring in some back row cards like Macrocosmos, Soul Drain or Necro Valley to kind of stun my opponent from doing certain plays, or even artifacts to take advantage against my opponent. And so what you could technically do if you wanted to is you could sub out 15 cards from your main deck. So let's say we wanted to put our entire side deck into the main deck, so let's put them all into there, and then I could perhaps take out some of the hand traps, maybe take out the Kaiju engine if I wanted to, or the Speedroid engine, might be even better to do so. And we'll leave 2 Menkos in there, take out some of the Kaijus. This is just a rough example, so forgive me if it doesn't look perfect. Take out some of the Kaijus along with Interrupted Slumber or something along those lines, and that way you can really change the structure of your deck so that your opponent may not be able to find the right counter for it. So that's just a really rough example of what Yosenjus are like in terms of their build and their compatibility with other engines. Let's get into some gameplay here and look at what they can do. Okay, so this is the first of 2 games which we're going to be looking at here today. This first one here, I just want to kind of show you some of the really strong first turn plays a Yosenju Kaiju deck can kind of make together. So on this first turn play, what you're going to see me do is first I'm going to bring out a Speedroid and Speedroid Teratop, and Speedroid Teratop's going to get me a search. I'm going to search out Tactenborg, who can be also special summon to the field because I have a win monster on the field. With Speedroid Tactenborg and Speedroid Teratop on the field, I can now play 5 Formation Tenki to do another search for Yosenju Kama 1. With Yosenjus, you always want to go and grab Kama 1, it's just so good, and so we're going to go and get that right now. Now I'm going to combine my 2 Speedroids into Totem Bird. Totem Bird is a really amazing rank 3 monster which requires 2 win monsters to bring out, but its effect is you can attach 2 cards during either player's turn to negate any spell or trap card effect. Now I'm going to use my normal summon to bring out 1 Kama 3, which then let me bring out a Kama 1, and then the Kama 1 lets me bring out another Kama 3, and we're going to attack directly against my opponent with all of these cards. By doing damage with 1 Kama 3 lets me trigger the other Kama 3's effect to search out another Kama 1 from my deck and add it to my hand, and now we're going to keep on attacking my opponent directly, doing nice bits of damage towards my opponent to bring them down all the way towards very low health, 1200 life points left. In main phase 2, we are now going to go into Gagaga Cowboy to combine 2 of our Yosenjus to do a little bit more damage to my opponent. If I had one more Yosenju into available to myself, I would have actually been able to kill my opponent in this turn, but we won't be able to do that just yet. So we've done 800 more damage to my opponent, leaving them at 400 damage. We set down 1 card, and we bring back the Yosenju Camera 3 left back to my hand during the end phase. My opponent on their turn plays Galaxy Cyclone, and Totem Bird is now going to take care of that and deal with it. So he's going to negate that card, protected by Vanity's Emptiness, and that is going to be very helpful for me, because Vanity's Emptiness is pretty much a game sealer in many situations, and so my opponent surrenders. That was just a rough idea of what a first turn play sometimes can be for like Yosenjus, and so now we're going to get into a bit of a longer duel here. This duel that we're playing against Tyranno now, or Tyran now, is he's using a very interesting Blue Eyes variant. It's a combination of Light Sworns, Blue Eyes, and also some other mill cards which get sent to the graveyard and do a bunch of graveyard effects. Graveyard builds are very strong right now. People don't often main deck stuff to stop graveyard builds outside of things like Abyss Dweller, because it doesn't always synergize with their build, but it is very powerful nonetheless. My apologies for not getting the entire duel here. I only recorded from the 3rd turn here, but you didn't really miss too much in the 1st turn or so, just myself getting taking a bit of damage there from a couple of direct attacks. So we're on to turn 4 here now. It is my turn here, and I'm trying to consider what the best play to do will be. And so we're going to play Interrupted Kaiju Summon, which will destroy all monsters on the field. I then get to special summon 2 Kaijus to the field. I give my opponent Gameciel and myself Dogoran. Dogoran has 3000 attack, whereas Gameciel has 2200 attack. But we're not going to be attacking Gameciel this turn. We're going to be using the opportunity to play Soul Charge in order to get a couple more monsters to the field. So we get Speedroid Terratop, Tapten Borg, and Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit back from my graveyard to the field. Now Terratop, when special summon, gets a search, and so I get a Speedroid Menko in the situation that my opponent might be able to attack me directly. I have some defense in my hand, and now we're going to combine once again the 2 Speedroids for Totem Bird to negate any spell trap cards my opponent wants to use. To wrap up this turn here, we are now going to actually normal summon the Menko which I searched out. I'm going to use the level 3 tuner in Ghost Ogre Snow Rabbit with Menko to bring out Clear Wing Synchro Dragon to give myself some negation against my opponent's monster's effects, because he is relying on them quite heavily in the graveyard right now. So my opponent goes into the next turn here. He sets 1 card face down on the field, and then very rightly so goes into the battle phase and uses Gameciel to attack into Totem Bird. Gameciel is going to destroy Totem Bird, so I no longer have that spell trap card negation, and passes over to myself. In my own turn here, I'm now going to go to the battle phase pretty much just straight away, and we are going to destroy my opponent's card, and we're going to first use Clearing Synchro to attack into Gameciel. Gameciel is weakened in Clearing Synchro, but my opponent has a card called Bacon Shaver or Bacon Saver in the graveyard, which is going to stop my opponent's my attack from going through. Then I go to attack with Dogoran, and he responds with a card called Shield Warrior in the graveyard, which makes it so that his monster won't be destroyed by battle during this turn or for this attack. And so he still takes some damage in terms of life points, but he manages to protect Gameciel and keep it face up on the field. Now in my opponent's turn, he tributes both monsters for Blue Eyes White Dragon, giving himself a free king monster on the field to be able to take out Clear Wing Synchro Dragon. Blue Eyes is going to be able to run over him quite easily, and he's also now tributed or sent to the graveyard another copy of Shield Warrior into the graveyard, so his Blue Eyes will be protected somehow. In my hand now, I'm going to get rid of the Blue Eyes, and we're going to tribute it for the Gameciel in my graveyard in my hand, and then we're going to banish Interrupted Kaiju Slumber to search out another Kaiju from my deck to my hand. We're now going to go to Gameciel, but I'm fully aware that he has Shield Warrior, and so we're just going to have to keep on attacking until he runs out of cards in his graveyard that will stop my attacks. And he's got quite a few of them here. This build that Tyranno now is playing is quite good. I actually kind of like it. It's a good mill variant and a different way to be playing Blue Eyes in the current format. It's got cards like Felgrand in there, Ancient Whitestone, and so it kind of makes sense to kind of mill a lot of his cards there in order to get these graveyard effects. I'm pretty sure there's probably some kind of chaos cards in there as well, to take advantage of the fact that he has dark and light monsters in the graveyard. On my own turn here, I draw into Trade In, and Trade is going to let me send 1 Kaiju to the graveyard and also draw 2 cards. I managed to get Kamatu and Maxi. Not a terrible hand. In this duel, one thing which was really hurting me was the ability to get the Yosenjus out quite early. I had plenty of Speedroids and plenty of Kaijus, but I didn't have the Yosenjus. I went to attack my opponent's face down card. He has Dandelion. My opponent has a lot of stall cards, and it's very, very frustrating to deal with stall. There's a lot of ways to stop myself from going for attacks because of all his milling and all his graveyard effects, but we are just going to keep on pushing forward and try to get through his wall as much as possible. So he sets down one more card in the field and leaves himself with a nice decent field. The Gamma Seal is now a problem because the Gamma Seal has 3000 defense and I have nothing that's really bigger than it to attack over it. So I'm going to try and clear my opponents for this turn, as we first normal summon Kaba 2 and then normal summon into Sujik as well. If I had a Kaba 1, that would have been great at this point in time, because Kaba 1 could have bounced the Gamma Seal back from my opponent's field to my hand, but it isn't what we had at the time, so we have to kind of make do. So now we are going to attack my opponent's cards and try to get as rid of many of them as possible. So we attack into a Dandelion token, and then we attack into another Dandelion token, getting rid of both of those on the field. And then we're going to attack my opponent's face down card, which is Necro Gardener, another kind of stop an attack from banishing a card in the graveyard type of effect. To wrap up this turn though, I'm going to go for an XC summon. I'm going to use both of my my Yosenjus to bring at Castell. I'm a little bit worried about leaving him with Gamma Seal because I haven't really got a way to get rid of it, and so I'm going to use the opportunity now to get rid of Gamma Seal while it's forming a huge wall for my opponent. You gotta be careful with Gamma Seal in that regard, because Gamma Seal does have a very, very big booty, but you know, there's not a whole lot you can really do about it anyway. So we'll use Castell to return the Gamma Seal back to my deck, and we pass over to my opponent. My opponent is now going to, well, we'll see what he will do in a second. And this was a really, really good duel. This was a very, very back and forth game. His engine, his graveyard engine, really kind of worked well against the Kaiju engine. If I was doing this as a match, I probably would have used something along the lines of being able to kind of counter his plays, and bring in some cards like Soul Drain, Macrocosmos, Dimensional Fissure, you know, all those kind of things to maybe stop him sending so many cards to the graveyard. But for the time being, in the main deck, we don't really have a lot to counter it. But it's a good way to highlight maybe the weaknesses of this build. This isn't a deck which can cover all bases at once without having some kind of flaw in the consistency, and I prefer to have a consistent build as opposed to something that can cover all the bases overall. So, as you can see, my opponent used Necro Gardener to negate Dagoran's attack, and he's going to just keep on doing that until he can find something to kind of capitalize with. So we go over to my opponent's next turn here, and he's having a bit of a think and a wonder as to what he can do here. And he plays Dark Well Dealings to hopefully draw into a card that's more useful. Dark Well Dealings forces you to draw one card, but then you have to discard one, and that works really well for his deck and not really helpful for mine. But that Speedroid in my hand wasn't going to really help me too much, because I didn't want a normal summon a card and then take a lot of damage from something inadvertently. But then my opponent realizes there isn't much he can do there, so he surrenders. Guys, thanks for tuning into this episode as always, and I'll see you soon. Take care.